The mountain terrain is unforgiving at 10,000 feet. Thin air burns lungs, loose shale turns ankles, and the Hindu Kush doesn't care about your rank, your training, or how badly you want to survive. Petty Officer First Class. Marcus Webb is bleeding out from shrapnel wounds across his left side. His tactical vest shredded by the IED that killed 2 of his teammates and scattered the rest across a ridgeline that's now crawling with enemy fighters. He's 6'3", weighs 220 pounds with gear, and he's got maybe 2 hours before blood loss takes him permanently offline. The SEAL team's medic is 300 meters away across terrain the enemy controls. The extraction bird won't risk landing under fire, and the only person close enough to help is someone Webb's team spent the last 3 days quietly dismissing as too small, too young, too female to keep up with operators doing real work. Specialist Jenna Lawson is 5'4" and barely clears 120 pounds soaking wet. She's an Army Signals Intelligence Specialist attached to the SEAL team for Communications Intercept. Basically, a radio operator who wasn't supposed to leave the FOB, let alone patrol with door kickers in the mountains. But right now, she's the only thing standing between Marcus Webb and a body bag. Before we show you how someone that small carried someone that big 8 miles through enemy territory, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and hit subscribe. Because what happened next wasn't just about physical strength, it was about the kind of determination that rewrites every assumption about what's possible when there's no other choice. The mission briefing 3 days ago had been straightforward. Insert a SEAL reconnaissance element into the mountains to gather intelligence on enemy movement patterns near the Pakistan border. Standard stuff. The SEALs would do the dangerous work, and Jenna would monitor enemy communications from a hide position, providing real-time translation of intercepts. Chief Petty Officer Ryan Carver made his position clear during pre-mission planning. Lawson stays at the OP. She monitors comms, she stays off the net unless it's critical, and she does not slow us down if we need to move fast. Jenna nods from the back of the briefing room, used to this reception. She's been attached to special operations units 4 times now, and it always starts the same way. The operators are professional, they're not openly hostile, but the message is clear. You're support staff, not an operator, and we're tolerating your presence because command says we have to. What they don't know, what her personnel file doesn't advertise, is that before Jenna became a signals intelligence specialist, she spent 2 years as a field artillery gunner, humping 80-pound shells in 100-degree heat. Before that, she grew up in Montana carrying elk quarters out of the backcountry, sometimes hiking 12 miles with a 100-pound pack, because that's what you do when your family eats what you hunt. But she doesn't mention any of this. She just checks her gear, loads her magazines for the M4 carbine she's authorized to carry for self-defense, and prepares for another mission where she'll have to prove she belongs. The insertion goes smoothly. The helicopter drops them on a ridgeline at dusk, and the team moves through the darkness with practiced efficiency. Jenna keeps pace without complaint, her smaller frame actually an advantage in the tight mountain terrain where low profile and efficient movement matter more than raw size. They establish the observation post in a cluster of rocks that provides good cover and excellent sight lines into the valley below. For 2 days, the routine is exactly as planned. The SEALs rotate security while conducting surveillance. Jenna monitors enemy radio frequencies, catching fragments of communication that suggest increased activity in the area, but nothing immediately threatening. The SEALs are professional, focused, and mostly ignore her beyond necessary tactical communications. Webb is particularly dismissive, making comments to his teammates that are just quiet enough to maintain deniability, but loud enough for Jenna to hear. Must be nice having a job where you sit on your ass with headphones while we do the real work. Wonder what she'd do if actual shooting started. Probably freeze up like most pogs. Pog person. Other than grunt, it's not the worst thing Jenna's been called, and she's learned that responding only makes it worse. So she does her job, monitors her frequencies, and keeps her observations to herself. On the 3rd day, everything changes. The patrol that morning is supposed to be routine, 4 SEALs conducting close reconnaissance of a trail junction where intelligence suggests enemy supplies are moving. Jenna stays at the OP with 2 SEALs providing security, her headphones picking up increased radio chatter that makes her uneasy. "Chief, I'm getting a lot of traffic on enemy nets. Multiple call signs coordinating movement. Sounds like they're converging on this valley." Carver's voice comes back clipped and professional. "Copy. Keep monitoring. Let me know if you hear anything specific about our position." 10 minutes later, the world explodes. The IED is command detonated, triggered by an enemy observer who's been tracking the patrol. The blast tears through the SEAL element, killing 2 men instantly and wounding 3 others. The ambush that follows is textbook. Automatic weapons fire from 3 positions, RPGs to prevent maneuver, coordinated assault to overrun the survivors before they can establish defensive positions. At the OP, Jenna hears the explosion and immediately starts working her intercepts, fingers flying across her equipment as enemy communications spike. "Chief, they knew you were coming. I'm hearing references to American patrol and prepared positions." This was planned. But the tactical net is chaos. Wounded men screaming, weapons fire. Carver's voice cutting through, trying to coordinate a defense that's already falling apart. The 2 SEALs at the OP with Jenna immediately start preparing to move down and support their teammates. But the senior man, Petty Officer Hayes, makes a hard calculation. "We move down there. We get caught in the same kill zone. We need to call for fire support and extraction." He's right tactically. But Jenna is watching the ridgeline through her binoculars, and she can see one figure separated from the others, dragging himself behind a rock, clearly wounded and unable to move. The enemy fighters are maneuvering to flank the main SEAL position, and that isolated figure is directly in their path. She doesn't think. She just moves. "I'm going after the wounded man." Hayes grabs her arm. "Lawson, that's not your job. Stay here and work comms. Someone has to get him before the enemy does. You need to coordinate fire support. I'm going." Before Hayes can argue, Jenna is moving down the slope, her M4 carbine held tight, her smaller frame using every bit of cover the terrain provides. She moves fast but careful, knowing that speed without concealment just gets you killed faster. The wounded SEAL is Marcus Webb, and he's in bad shape. Shrapnel has torn through his left side, his armor plate stopped the worst of it, but fragments have lacerated his ribs and shoulder. He's conscious but fading, trying to apply pressure to wounds he can barely reach. Jenna slides into cover next to him, immediately assessing the damage with the combat first aid training every soldier receives. "Webb, I'm going to get you out of here, but I need you to stay with me." He looks at her with eyes that are struggling to focus, recognition dawning slowly. "Lawson, what the hell are you doing here?" "Saving your ass. Can you walk?" "Can barely move. Left side is shredded." Automatic weapons fire cracks overhead as enemy fighters close on their position. Jenna risks a glance over the rocks and counts at least 4 fighters moving up the slope, weapons ready, clearly searching for survivors. She makes a decision that will either save them both or get them killed. "I'm going to suppress them. When I do, we move. I'll help you, but you need to use everything you've got to move with me." Webb starts to protest. She's a 100-pound signal specialist. He's 220 of wounded SEAL, but the look in her eyes stops him. There's a determination there that he recognizes, the kind that comes from people who refuse to accept impossible odds. Jenna checks her M4, confirms she has a full magazine of 30 rounds plus 4 more on her vest. Not a lot of ammunition for what she's about to do, but it'll have to be enough. She rises from cover and opens fire. The M4 carbine barks in controlled bursts, not fully automatic spray and pray, but precise 3-round groups aimed at the enemy positions. She's not trying to kill them all, she's trying to make them take cover, to break their momentum, to buy precious seconds. The enemy fighters dive for cover, returning fire but shooting wild, surprised by the sudden aggression from what they thought was a pinned target. Jenna uses those seconds to drop back down, slinging her rifle and grabbing Webb under his good arm. "Move, now!" Webb pushes with his legs while Jenna pulls, and together they manage to get him upright. He's big, way too big for her to carry normally, But she gets her shoulder under his arm and starts moving, using her legs to drive forward while he does what he can to help. They make it 20 meters before the enemy recovers and opens fire again. Rounds snap past them, impacting rock and kicking up dust. Jenna guides them to cover behind a boulder, breathing hard but focused. You can't carry me 8 miles, Webb gasps, pain making his voice tight. Watch me. But she knows he's right. She can't carry him traditional fireman carry style. He's nearly twice her weight and she'd collapse in 100 meters. She needs a different approach. Jenna strips off Webb's tactical vest, reducing his weight by 30 pounds of armor and ammunition. She takes his remaining magazines and water, consolidating essential gear. Then, she positions him on her back in a modified Ranger. Carry. His good arm over her shoulder, her arms hooked under his knees, his weight distributed across her shoulders and hips rather than trying to hold him with arm strength alone. It's a technique designed for moving casualties over distance, and it requires the carrier to lean forward, using skeletal structure and core strength rather than just muscle. It's still brutally hard, but it's possible. Hold on tight and stay conscious. If you pass out, we both die. She starts moving. The first 100 meters are the hardest. Every step sends jolts of pain through Webb's wounds, making him grunt and curse. Jenna's legs are already burning, her back screaming in protest at the unnatural weight distribution. But she keeps moving, one step at a time, using terrain features to help, descending slopes where gravity assists, choosing routes that offer maximum cover. Behind them, enemy fighters are pursuing. She can hear their voices, closer than she'd like, coordinating their search. But the mountains are vast and the terrain is complex. As long as she keeps moving and doesn't leave obvious signs, she has a chance. After 20 minutes, she has to stop. Her legs are shaking, her breathing ragged. She lowers Webb as gently as possible, checking his wounds. Still bleeding, but not arterial. He's conscious, which is good, but his face is pale with blood loss. "Leave me," he says, and there's no bravado in it, just the tactical calculation of a professional who knows the math. You can move faster alone, get to the extraction point, send help back. And what happens when the enemy finds you in the next 10 minutes? I'll take some of them with me. That's not how this ends. Jenna pulls out her radio, checking if she can reach the command net. Static. They're too deep in the mountains, terrain blocking transmission. She switches to the emergency beacon, activating the signal that will tell overhead assets they're alive but in trouble. She can hear the enemy getting closer, voices echoing off the rocks. They're searching methodically, knowing wounded Americans can't have gone far. Jenna makes another hard decision. She positions Webb behind good cover, hands him his sidearm, and gives him 2 spare magazines. "Stay quiet. Stay hidden. I'm going to lead them away." Before he can protest, she's moving, deliberately making noise, creating a trail that leads away from his position. She moves 50 meters, then opens fire on the enemy positions with controlled bursts that announce her location while forcing them to take cover. The enemy takes the bait, pivoting to pursue this new threat. Jenna uses the terrain expertly, appearing just long enough to draw them further away, then disappearing into the rocks, circling back toward Webb's position through a route they can't see. It's a deadly game of cat and mouse, and she's outnumbered at least 4-1. But she has advantages. She's smaller, faster in the tight terrain, and she knows exactly where she's going while they're searching blind. She leads them 300 meters away from Webb, then goes to ground in a crevice between rocks, controlling her breathing, waiting. The enemy fighters pass within 10 meters, frustrated voices indicating they've lost her trail. Jenna waits 10 more minutes, ensuring they're committed to searching the wrong area, then moves back to Webb's position. He's conscious, weapon ready, looking at her with an expression that's shifted from dismissive to something else entirely. "You just drew off 4 armed fighters alone." 5, actually. There was one I don't think you saw. She helps him back into the Ranger carry position, ignoring the screaming protest from her shoulders and back. "We need to move while they're searching the wrong area." The next 2 hours are a blur of agony and determination. Jenna carries Webb through terrain that would be challenging without a 200-pound casualty on her back. She falls twice, both times managing to protect Webb from further injury while somehow getting back up and continuing. Her legs are beyond burning now, locked in a state of sustained effort that feels like running on broken glass. Her back has moved past pain into a numb ache that she knows will be crippling later, if there is a later. Her shoulders are rubbed raw where Webb's weight presses down, blood from his wounds mixing with her sweat. But she keeps moving. Webb drifts in and out of consciousness, occasionally mumbling apologies or tactical observations. During one lucid moment, he asks the question that's been bothering him. Why? You don't owe me anything. I haven't exactly been welcoming. Jenna adjusts her grip, using a brief downhill slope to rest her legs slightly. You think I'm doing this for you? I'm doing it because leaving someone to die isn't something I can do. Your opinion of me doesn't change that equation. Still, most people would have left me. Then most people aren't very good at this job. They cross a stream, the cold water actually helping as Jenna wades through knee-deep, using the water to cool her overheated muscles and mask their trail. On the far side, she has to climb a slope that seems impossible, each step requiring her to find something, rocks, roots, sheer will, to pull them upward. At the top, she collapses, lowering Webb and simply lying there for a moment, every muscle in her body screaming. She's carried him maybe 3 miles, 5 more to go. The math seems impossible. The radio crackles. They've gained enough elevation to catch signal from the extraction bird. Any call sign? This is Rescue 6. We are orbiting your beacon but cannot land under enemy fire. Can you move to alternate LZ? Jenna checks her GPS, comparing their position to the alternate landing zone. 4 more miles, different direction, more climbing. She does the calculation. With Webb's weight and her deteriorating strength, maybe 3 more hours if nothing goes wrong. Rescue 6, this is Lawson. Moving to alternate LZ with 1 urgent casualty. Enemy presence between current position and objective. Request fire support if available. Copy Lawson. Be advised Apache gunships are inbound your area. Can you mark enemy positions? Jenna thinks about the fighters she led away from Webb earlier. They'll have regrouped by now, probably figured out she doubled back, and they're going to be between her and the landing zone. Negative on current enemy positions. They're mobile and hunting. I'll mark if I make contact. She hauls Webb back into position, her body protesting with new intensity, and starts moving toward the alternate LZ. The 4th mile breaks something in her back. She can feel it, a muscle or ligament giving way under the sustained strain. The pain is sharp enough to make her gasp, almost dropping Webb, but she adjusts her grip and keeps moving, now limping slightly, favoring her right side. Webb notices. You're hurt. We're both hurt. Difference is I can still move. This is insane. You're going to cripple yourself. Probably, but I'm still going to get you to that bird. The terrain forces them onto an exposed ridgeline. Not ideal, but the alternative routes add too much distance. Jenna moves as fast as she dares, knowing they're visible to anyone looking, knowing this is where the enemy will spot them if they're smart. She's halfway across when the first shots crack out. The enemy has found them, fighters positioned on higher ground, firing down at the ridgeline. Rounds impact around Jenna's feet, forcing her to abandon the exposed route and scramble for cover behind rocks that aren't quite big enough. She lowers Webb, her hands going to her M4, but her ammunition situation is dire. She's got maybe 15 rounds left in her current magazine and 2 full magazines remaining. Not enough for a sustained firefight against multiple targets. Then she remembers Webb's sidearm, a Sig Sauer P226 with 3 magazines. She pulls it from his holster along with his magazines, now having a backup weapon when the rifle runs dry. The enemy is closing in, emboldened by having them pinned. Jenna can count at least 6 fighters now, moving tactically, using cover, not making the mistakes amateurs make. These are experienced combatants who know how to finish what they start. She switches her M4 to semi-automatic, conserving ammunition, and begins engaging with precision. Each shot is carefully aimed, center mass, controlled trigger press, follow through. Her first round drops a fighter who exposed himself too long while moving between rocks. The second shot hits another in the shoulder, spinning him and forcing him to cover. But they're still advancing, and she's running out of time and ammunition. That's when the Apache appears. The attack helicopter comes in low over the adjacent ridge, its sensors having tracked the firefight. The pilot's voice crackles over Jenna's radio. Ground element taking fire. This is Apache 2-1. We have eyes on your position. Can you mark hostile positions? Jenna risks exposure to point her IR laser at the enemy fighters, the beam invisible to the naked eye, but clear as day through the Apache's targeting systems. Hostiles marked. Danger close. We're pinned behind rocks 30 meters south of the beam. Copy. We're weapons hot. Keep your head down. The 30mm chain gun erupts with a sound like the world's largest chainsaw. High explosive rounds tear into the mountainside where the enemy fighters are positioned, each impact creating a small explosion that sends rock fragments and shrapnel in all directions. The enemy positions simply cease to exist under the onslaught. 3 fighters who weren't in the direct line of fire break and run, abandoning their attack to save their own lives. The Apache's co-pilot tracks them with the chin-mounted gun, sending precision bursts that end their retreat permanently. The silence after the gun falls silent is almost shocking. Ground element, Apache 2-1. Area is clear. We'll orbit overhead while you move to the LZ. Copy 2-1. Thanks for the save. Jenna's hands are shaking now, adrenaline dump combining with physical exhaustion. She takes 3 deep breaths, forces her hands steady, and gets Webb back into position. That was close, Webb mutters, more alert now that immediate danger is past. Too close. We need to move before more show up. The presence of the Apache overhead changes the tactical situation completely. The enemy knows that advancing into the open means dying under 30mm fire, so they stay hidden, letting the Americans move unmolested toward the landing zone. But Jenna's body is failing. Each step is agony now, her back injury screaming with every movement, her legs barely responding to commands from her brain. She's running on willpower and nothing else, the tank empty but somehow still producing forward momentum. She falls again, this time unable to protect Webb properly. He takes the impact hard, crying out as his wounded side hits the ground. Jenna tries to get up, her legs simply refusing to cooperate, muscles locked in sustained cramp that won't release. I can't. It's the first time she's admitted defeat and the words taste like failure. Webb looks at her, at this 100-pound specialist who's carried him 6 miles through hell, and makes his own decision. He uses his good arm to push himself into a sitting position, then starts crawling toward the landing zone, dragging his wounded side, leaving a blood trail, but moving. Jenna watches him for 3 seconds, then fury overwhelms exhaustion. She didn't carry him 6 miles to watch him crawl the last quarter mile and tear his wounds open. She forces herself upright, legs screaming protest, and staggers after him. What the hell are you doing? You'll kill yourself. What does it look like? I'm moving to the LZ since you're too stubborn to leave me behind. That's not how this works. Jenna reaches him, physically grabbing him, using anger to fuel strength her body no longer possesses. I didn't carry you this far to watch you bleed out 50 meters from rescue. They're both yelling now, exhausted and injured and running on pure adrenaline, neither willing to quit, neither willing to let the other sacrifice themselves. It would be absurd if it wasn't so deadly serious. The Apache pilot has been watching this drama unfold and makes an executive decision. Rescue 6, we need immediate pickup at current location. Ground element is combat ineffective but refusing to quit. Get that bird on the ground now. The Black Hawk pilot doesn't hesitate. He brings the helicopter in hot, landing in a space that's barely large enough, rotor wash blasting Jenna and Webb with hurricane-force wind and stinging debris. The crew chief and a paramedic jump out, running to the 2 soldiers who are still arguing about who should crawl and who should carry. The paramedic, a grizzled veteran who's seen everything, just shakes his head. You 2 are the stubbornest damn people I've ever seen. Shut up and let us do our jobs. They load Webb first, the paramedic working to stabilize his wounds while the crew chief turns to Jenna. She tries to wave him off, tries to walk to the helicopter under her own power, but her legs finally give out completely. She goes down hard, unable to catch herself. The crew chief catches her before she hits the ground, lifting her easily despite her protests. Ma'am, with all due respect, you've done enough. Let someone else carry you for once. As the helicopter lifts off, Jenna finally allows herself to stop fighting. She lies on the deck watching the medics work on Webb, listening to the Apache pilot reporting enemy movements to command, feeling the vibration of the rotors through the deck plating. They made it. Against odds that should have been impossible, through terrain that should have defeated them, past enemies that should have killed them. They made it. Webb reaches out with his good hand, finding Jenna's, squeezing once. She squeezes back, too exhausted for words, but the message is clear. They survived because neither one would quit. Because size doesn't matter when determination is absolute. Because sometimes the smallest person carries the heaviest load and does it without complaining, without stopping, without accepting defeat. The last thing Jenna sees before exhaustion finally claims her is Webb looking at her with an expression that contains no trace of the dismissiveness from 3 days ago. Just respect, gratitude, and the knowledge that he owes his life to someone he'd written off as too small to matter. Sometimes the strongest people come in the smallest packages, and sometimes it takes carrying someone 8 miles through hell to prove it. Jenna wakes up in a field hospital, her back wrapped in bandages, her legs elevated, IV lines running into both arms. The medical officer explains that she's torn multiple muscles in her back, severely strained both knees, and caused stress fractures in both feet from the sustained load bearing. You're going to be in physical therapy for months. What you did. The human body isn't designed to carry that kind of weight for that distance. You've done significant damage. How's Webb? The SEAL. He'll make it. Lost a lot of blood, but no permanent damage. He's been asking about you. They let him visit later that day. He walks in using crutches, his left side heavily bandaged, but his color better. He sits in the chair next to her bed, and for a long moment, neither of them speaks. Finally, Webb breaks the silence. I owe you my life, and an apology. You don't owe me anything. Apology accepted, though. What you did, I wouldn't have thought it was possible. Hell, I'm not sure I could have done it if our positions were reversed. Jenna shifts carefully, her back protesting any movement. Physical strength isn't just about size. It's about leverage, technique, and refusing to quit when your body is screaming at you to stop. That what they teach in signals intelligence school? No, that's what I learned carrying elk quarters out of the Montana backcountry when I was 14. Turns out that kind of determination transfers. Webb nods slowly, processing this information that recontextualizes everything he thought he knew about the small specialist he'd dismissed. The team wants to put you in for a Silver Star. Chief Carver's writing it up personally. Not necessary. Yeah, it is. You went into a kill zone alone, suppressed enemy fighters, carried a casualty 8 miles through mountains while injured, and got both of you to extraction. That's textbook valor, above and beyond. I was just doing my job. No, Webb says firmly. Your job was to monitor radio frequencies. What you did was way beyond that. You saved my life when you had every reason to leave me behind after how I treated you. That kind of courage, that kind of character, that's what medals are for. The Silver Star recommendation works its way up the chain of command, gathering endorsements from everyone involved in the operation. The citation describes the actions in clinical military language, but anyone reading it can feel the extraordinary nature of what happened. 3 months later, Jenna stands in formation at Fort Bragg while a general pins the Silver Star to her uniform. Her back still aches, her knees still hurt, and the physical therapist says she'll probably have chronic issues for the rest of her life. But she's standing, and the SEAL team that once dismissed her is in attendance, Webb prominent among them, applauding louder than anyone when the medal is presented. After the ceremony, Jenna is approached by a colonel she doesn't recognize. He introduces himself as the commander of a specialized training program. Specialist Lawson, we've been following your case with interest. The kind of determination you displayed, the physical capability despite your size, the tactical thinking under pressure, those are exactly the qualities we look for in our program. What kind of program, sir? The kind that doesn't care about your size, your gender, or what anyone assumes about your capabilities. We only care about results. And you've proven you can deliver results when it matters most. He hands her a card with a phone number and nothing else. If you're interested in continuing to prove what's possible when people underestimate you, give that number a call. 6 months later, Jenna is running through an obstacle course designed to break candidates who don't have the right combination of strength, endurance, and pure, stubborn refusal to quit. She's one of 3 women in a class of 40, and the only one under 5 feet 6. The instructors watch her complete a rope climb while carrying a 60-pound pack, her smaller frame actually advantageous for the technique-dependent exercise. She finishes 3rd overall in the Evolution, beating candidates who have 50 pounds and 6 inches on her. One instructor makes a note in his evaluation book, "Size doesn't determine capability. Will determines capability. Lawson has will in surplus." Marcus Webb, recovered and back with his SEAL team, gets a letter from Jenna 6 months into her new training. It's brief, just a few lines letting him know she's doing well and thanking him for the recommendation that led to her new opportunity. He writes back with his own update and ends with a line that makes her smile. "I tell everyone the story of how a 100-pound signal specialist carried a 200-pound SEAL 8 miles through the mountains. Half of them don't believe me. But I was there. I know what you're capable of. Whatever you're doing now, I know you're proving them wrong again. Keep carrying the weight. Some of us know exactly how strong you are." Years later, when instructors teach load-bearing techniques for casualty evacuation, they reference the case study of specialist Jenna Lawson, who carried a wounded SEAL 8 miles through enemy territory despite being half his size. The lesson isn't about matching size to load. The lesson is about technique, determination, and the reality that when someone's life depends on you, impossible becomes irrelevant. You find a way because there is no other option. And sometimes, the smallest person in the unit turns out to be exactly the person everyone needs when survival stops being about size and starts being about who refuses to quit when quitting would be easier. The story becomes legend within special operations communities. New candidates hear it during selection courses when they're ready to quit, when their bodies are screaming and their minds are looking for any excuse to stop. Instructors tell them about Jenna Lawson, about how someone half the size of most operators carried a full-grown SEAL through 8 miles of hell because quitting wasn't an option she was willing to accept. The medical community studies her case too, trying to understand the biomechanics of what she accomplished. How does someone that small generate the sustained force necessary to move that much weight over that distance? The answer, they discover, isn't in her muscles. It's in her technique, her skeletal alignment, her efficient use of momentum and terrain, and most importantly, her absolute refusal to acknowledge physical limitations when lives are at stake. Physical therapists incorporate her load-bearing methods into training programs. The modified Ranger carry she used becomes standard instruction for moving casualties when traditional carries aren't feasible. Her case proves that proper technique can overcome massive disparities in size and strength, that understanding leverage matters more than raw power. But the real lesson, the one that matters most to the operators who hear her story, isn't about technique or biomechanics. It's about character. It's about the reality that when everything is on the line, when someone's life depends on you refusing to quit, size becomes irrelevant. What matters is the content of your will, the depth of your determination, and your unwillingness to accept defeat. Jenna Lawson proved that on a mountain in Afghanistan, carrying a man twice her size through enemy territory because leaving him behind wasn't something she could live with. And in doing so, she rewrote the assumptions about what's possible when someone small enough to be dismissed decides they're strong enough to matter. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories every day.